Welcome back to Thompson's Coins, where today I'm telling you what happened on the weekend down in Tasmania, as well as showing some cool things that came through the shop over the past week. Let's start with something that I was disappointed not to have access to a couple of months ago when the Australian Coin Review celebrated the 50th anniversary of this beautiful Swan dollar. This was a submission for the proposed dollar for the change to decimal currency. So in 1965, when all the talk was happening in relation to Australia shifting from pounds, shillings and pence into the decimal system, the Australian Coin Review held a competition, and this was the winning design, which was ultimately produced. And then to celebrate the 50th anniversary, the Australian Coin Review commissioned another run with the same quantities being produced by the Royal Australian Mint. So the quantities were 1,500 of the uncirculated and then 750 of the proof. What I have here is one of the original 750 proof examples of the Swan dollar, and it even comes in its original box, which is quite exciting to see, the whole package intact. And something else that I really enjoy about this particular example is a beautiful toning. It's really consistent all over the coin, and it just gives it that nice aged look and adds a little bit more mystique to the coin, I think. Something else that we have here is a beautiful £1 note. This is a Cerity Collins £1 note from 1918. When I say Cerity Collins, I'm referring to the signatures on the note. So we have the Assistant Secretary, which was Cerity, and then the Secretary to the Treasury, which was Collins. So those are the two signatures that appear on the banknote. And I also just love the artistry that goes on these old notes. They're also quite a bit larger than the modern notes that we use today. So they're the type of thing that not only is it larger, it has beautiful artistry on it. And being from 1918, this is towards the very end of World War I. So I think it's quite incredible to be able to hold a piece of paper currency from that period still in such beautiful intact condition, and it's been graded and authenticated by PMG, which is Paper Money Guarantee, who are a very highly regarded third-party grading service that do grading for paper money like this. Now we'll move over to the last little thing that I'll highlight before I talk about Hobart. We have a 10 shilling note from 1928. What's interesting about this is that periodically, if you look back into and start to get interested in early Australian paper banknote collecting, you'll see periodically the red text here that says half sovereign. Now the function of this, it was basically a public education mechanism. So during this time, this was in the lead up to Australia's departure from the gold standard. What I mean by that is Australia, when it was on a gold standard, possibly something worth discussing actually. Here we go. We're taking a little detour. So often you hear the term, just in general, that if something is really good, it's the gold standard. What you may not understand is that the gold standard actually was a thing. It was a monetary system. Quite literally, all of the money that was changing hands in day-to-day commerce was actually gold. When we were using sovereigns and things like that, that was the gold standard. And then when these notes were being produced, this was in the lead up to 1932, which is when Australia ultimately departed the gold standard and everything went onto a fiat system, which is just paper money basically. So the red text saying half sovereign was to give members of the public the confidence and the assurance that this 10 shilling note had the equal value of a gold half sovereign, which conveniently is what I have here. We also have a 1980 half sovereign. This is also a proof, and this was produced by the Royal Mint over in the UK. So something that's a bit nice for the collector that likes a bit of a presentation component to their sovereign collection. But I thought it tied in nicely with the old half sovereign 10 shilling note because it was such an interesting period of time, and it's nice to have tangible reminders of that period where people actually didn't have confidence in paper money, and in order to bridge the gap, the text was actually placed on the note to assure people that the value of 10 shillings was equivalent to a half sovereign. So another fascinating piece of Australian history, and now I will regale you with some stories of Tasmania. Once again, I think I say this every time, I did a terrible job of capturing any footage. Fortunately though, a dear friend of mine, Sam, is a videographer. So if you've ever been to the Money Expos when I'm there, you may see me wandering around and being all animated on camera. And it's a very good friend of mine, Sam, who is a videographer, and he's been filming content specifically for the Money Expo. So there will be some nice footage to come, and at some point I'll share that in some capacity. But I did get a little bit of footage and a couple of photos here and there. The venue was the Derwent Room at the Rest Point Casino. Something that I also found absolutely beautiful about the venue is it was actually snowing on top of Mount Wellington. So the foyer to the hotel, as soon as you walked out, you just saw this lovely snow-covered mountain right in front of you. So it was lovely to offset how unbelievably cold it was. I think on Saturday we were looking at a low of -1 degrees. So it was incredibly chilly, but fortunately staying at the venue meant that you only needed to get the elevator down and you'd walk through the hallway and then you were in the venue. So you actually didn't need to set foot outside. But it was really, really cold, which is, I guess, par for the course for Tasmania. Although some locals did tell me that it was unseasonably cold. So just something to bear in mind. If you ever want to come down for a future event, just make sure you bring a jacket or two. A fun fact about the Rest Point Casino that I did not know is that it was Australia's first casino. It opened in 1939 and is still standing today. And I've got to say, a number of people mentioned to me that it was quite dated, and they said, "Oh, you really sure you want to do the Money Expo there?" We turned up and it was absolutely beautiful. The staff were great. I thought the room was lovely. It was really well suited in terms of size and style for an event like the Money Expo. Two other aspects of this particular event which I thought were quite nice and also well received were having the educational component highlighted. Something that I really am a big advocate for is education within the collecting space. So many people can end up having an unpleasant experience with the wonderful world of collecting, and often it all relates back to, at some point, misinformation, and as a result, you can end up having an unpleasant time. But if you get the correct information, you talk to the right people at an event like the Money Expo, you end up having, I find, a much more enjoyable and rewarding experience. So something that we've started to push for is an educational seminar component at the events. And in Tasmania, we had Damien Walker, who is the author of The Pirate Guide to Australian Coin Collecting, do a presentation on an introduction to Australian coin collecting. So predominantly focused on modern decimal collecting. And then down the complete other end of the spectrum, we had Dr. Matthew Shillham from Romanorum do an introduction on ancient coin collecting. So I thought it was really nice to have two totally different specialized areas represented, and having those people be able to present the areas that they like to focus on to the audience to hopefully encourage people and provide some more accurate information and dispel some of the myths and rumors surrounding their particular areas of collecting. Maybe at some point in time I'll end up doing a talk at the Money Expos. I often commit to too many things, so invariably I end up too busy, but maybe that's something that I'll work towards, putting together some form of presentation that I can share with the attendees at the Money Expos. We'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. So understandably, Tasmania being the smallest state that the Money Expo visits, this was a comparatively smaller show. But what I like about it and what I really enjoy about an event like this is it doesn't have to be a massively crowded and intense event to be really enjoyable for both collectors and dealers. And what I found from wandering around the room and speaking to each of the dealers, as well as a number of people that attended the event, is that they really enjoyed and appreciated the fact that ordinarily they don't get access to so many dealers from all over other parts of the country, right up around. We had dealers all the way from Brisbane come all the way down from the north right down to the south of Australia, and they were really grateful for the opportunity to interact with all sorts of dealers with a wide array of material, that's half the fun of these events, is getting to have all these different dealers in one location and have collectors get the opportunity to meet so many interesting and different people. And as a result, I think on that front, it was a big success. Something else that was really cool about going down to Tassie was finally, after all this time, getting to catch up with the lovely folks at the Hobart Mint in person. Our first conversation was actually, I was sitting cross-legged on the floor right here in the shop, or what was going to be the shop. It was a shell at the time. I'll never forget the conversation when I saw some images of what they were doing online, and I decided to just it was a cold call. I had no mutual friends or connections. I just decided to pick up the phone and call and have a conversation. That preliminary phone call went for about an hour and a half. We ended up talking about all sorts of interesting things, and it was much the same getting to actually meet in person and have those conversations. And I've got to say, I'm not going to reveal any information or anything like that, but all I will say is that I'm extraordinarily excited for the future with the Hobart Mint, and I think there will be some very exciting projects to look forward to with no timeline whatsoever. I don't think anytime soon, but in the not too distant future, there will be some really exciting things to report on for you guys. So that's it for now. The Hobart Money Expo, it was the first time in I think over 10 years that the Money Expo had gone down to Tasmania. It was absolutely wonderful. It was so nice to catch up with so many enthusiastic collectors that, as I said earlier, we're really grateful for the opportunity to meet so many dealers from all over the country in one convenient location. By all accounts, the dealers had a really nice time as well. A lot of them were pleasantly surprised with the enthusiastic collector community down in Tassie. It was also lovely to catch up with Aaron, who is the new owner of the Coin and Stamp Place in Hobart. This is a coin shop that's been operational for over 40 years, and him and his lovely wife have recently taken it over. He is a fellow young coin shop owner, so it's really exciting to see someone else that's in their 30s really they're turning their passion into a reality and operating a coin shop. So I would encourage any viewers of this channel, if you find yourself down in Tasmania for a trip to the beautiful state of Tasmania, make sure you drop in and say g'day to the lovely folks at the Coin and Stamp Place. It was wonderful to catch up with them in person, as well as anyone else that was down there. I've got to say, these events, they're a nightmare to organise at times. Despite loving it, the organisational component, it's just a bit of a headache. But then when the events come together, it's always so nice to see everyone in person and also speak to people that are really appreciative of all the work that goes into these events. So for that, I thank you all very much. The next Money Expo is in Sydney at the end of October. It's the 25th and 26th of October. Once again, hopefully if I'm a bit more organised, I'll get some more footage and all that sort of jazz. It's unlikely. I'm becoming a bit of a realist with these things. But if you happen to be in the neighbourhood, please do drop in. Otherwise, we'll see you in a video very soon. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy collecting, the greatest hobby in the world, come on down. You can visit us here. We're at Shop 8 in the Boronia Mall, which is 50 Dorset Square in Boronia. We're open from 10 till 4, Tuesday to Friday. We're also here from 10 till 3 on a Saturday. Alrighty, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.